You probably have something made of gold, a wedding ring, a necklace, maybe a watch. You wear it because it's valuable. But imagine spending your entire fortune on gold, only to bury it where nobody would ever see it again. No children inherit it, no kingdom spends it, no one ever wears it again. Gold doesn't help you survive. You can't eat it, you can't drink it, you can't build a shelter with it. For thousands of years, this is exactly what the most powerful people on earth did. Egyptian pharaohs, Chinese emperors, Mayan kings, rulers across civilizations that never even met each other, all made the same astonishing decision. They filled their tombs with mountains of gold, then sealed the entrance forever. Why? Gold can't feed you, it can't protect you, it can't stop you from dying. So why did ancient kings believe they needed it more after death than during life? The answer isn't really about money. It's about one of the oldest ideas humanity has ever believed. And once you understand it, you'll never look at gold the same way again. If an ancient king was preparing for the greatest journey of his life, why fill his tomb with something completely useless? And not just a few ornaments. Entire rooms were packed with gold. Golden crowns, golden chariots, golden furniture, golden jewelry, golden weapons that would never be used. Some kings were buried wearing hundreds of pounds of it. Others surrounded themselves with enough treasure to bankrupt entire kingdoms. Then they sealed it all behind stone walls where nobody was ever supposed to see it again. Think about how strange that is. Every civilization understood that gold was valuable, which makes burying it even harder to explain. Imagine taking your entire life savings, locking it inside a concrete vault, and then throwing away the key forever. No children inherit it, no kingdom spends it, nobody benefits from it. It's simply gone. For thousands of years, humans repeated this behavior over and over again. Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, the Americas, completely different civilizations separated by oceans somehow arrived at nearly the same idea. The dead needed gold. But why? The answer turns out to be far stranger than simple wealth. Because ancient kings weren't burying treasure. They were trying to solve one of humanity's oldest problems, death itself. Let's go back. Long before pyramids pierced the Egyptian sky, long before emperors ruled China, long before Rome became an empire, humans were already placing valuable objects beside the dead. Archaeologists have discovered graves dating back more than 100,000 years, containing red ochre, shells, animal teeth, stone tools, and carefully arranged ornaments. None of these objects helped the living. Every one of them represented time, effort, resources, things that could have been used by the community. Instead, they disappeared forever beneath the earth. That tells us something remarkable. Very early humans weren't simply disposing of bodies. They believed death changed a person. It didn't necessarily end them. Anthropologists have spent decades studying burial traditions across cultures, and one pattern appears almost everywhere. When people believe someone continues existing after death, they begin treating the grave like a new home instead of a final resting place. You don't bury supplies for someone who no longer exists. You bury supplies for someone who's about to travel. That idea survived for tens of thousands of years. It simply became more elaborate as civilizations grew. Then came kings. And kings changed everything. Because ordinary people might receive a few possessions. A ruler received an entire world. Take ancient Egypt. If you picture an Egyptian pharaoh, you're probably imagining pyramids, golden masks, and endless treasure. But the Egyptians didn't fill tombs with gold because they loved expensive things. Gold meant something entirely different to them. To an Egyptian priest, gold wasn't merely a metal, it was divine. Unlike iron, bronze, or copper, gold never rusted, it never decayed. Leave it buried for 3,000 years, and it still gleams as though it had been polished that morning. To a civilization obsessed with eternity, that wasn't just impressive, it was supernatural. The Egyptians watched every living thing die. Trees withered, animals aged, people grew old, even mighty stone buildings slowly crumbled. But gold seemed immune to time itself. It refused to decay. And if something never died, perhaps it belonged to the gods. Ancient Egyptian texts often described gold as the flesh of the gods themselves, not metaphorically, literally. The sun god Ra crossed the sky every day in blazing brilliance, and gold reflected that same eternal light. A king covered in gold wasn't simply displaying wealth. He was transforming into something divine. When Pharaoh Tutankhamun died around 1323 BC, artisans spent months creating one of history's most famous objects, a funerary mask made from more than 20 pounds of solid gold. Today, millions admire it behind museum glass. but it was never intended to be seen by human eyes. The craftsman who built it expected the tomb to remain sealed forever. Its audience wasn't history. Its audience was eternity. Everything inside the tomb followed the same logic: golden beds, golden shrines, golden statues, golden sandals, even tiny protective amulets placed between the mummy's wrappings. Each object carried religious meaning. Each one prepared the king for life beyond death. The Egyptians even filled royal tombs with food, bread, wine, beer, meat, fruit, furniture, games, musical instruments, servants carved from wood, entire miniature farms. To us, it looks like unimaginable luxury. To them, it looked practical. If you believed someone would wake up in another world, wouldn't they need somewhere to sleep, something to eat, people to help them? Gold simply became the highest quality version of everything. But Egypt wasn't alone. Travel east into Mesopotamia, and you find another civilization surrounding rulers with astonishing treasure. The royal cemetery of Ur, discovered in modern Iraq, contained graves over 4,500 years old. Inside were golden helmets, golden cups, jewelry covered with lapis lazuli and carnelian, musical instruments decorated with precious metals. One burial contained an elaborate golden headdress so intricate that modern jewelers still admire its craftsmanship. But archaeologists uncovered something even more disturbing. Many of these treasures weren't buried alone. Dozens of human skeletons surrounded the king. Servants, musicians, guards, attendants. People who had almost certainly died so they could continue serving their ruler after death. For years, researchers debated exactly what happened. Did they volunteer? Were they sacrificed? Were they poisoned during elaborate funeral ceremonies? The evidence continues to be studied. But one thing is clear. The people who built these tombs genuinely believed kings continued ruling after death. And if a king still ruled, he still required an entire royal court. Gold alone wasn't enough. The king needed his kingdom. That idea spread across much of the ancient world. Power did not end at death. It simply moved somewhere else. Now travel thousands of miles east to ancient China. Once again, the pattern appears. Chinese emperors filled enormous underground tombs with treasures that no living person was ever supposed to use. Bronze vessels, jade carvings, gold ornaments, weapons, chariots, entire armies. The first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, became famous for the Terracotta Army. Thousands of life-sized soldiers standing silently beneath the earth, each face unique, each soldier equipped for eternal service. But fewer people realized that the emperor's burial complex also contained extraordinary amounts of precious metals and luxury goods. Ancient historians described rivers of flowing mercury representing China's waterways inside the tomb itself. Whether every detail is accurate remains debated, but archaeological discoveries confirm something astonishing. The emperor wasn't buried beneath a grave. He was buried beneath an empire, because no matter where you looked, Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, or countless other civilizations, one belief kept returning. Death wasn't retirement, it was relocation. And if you expected to rule forever, you needed to arrive looking like a king. But there was one problem with filling a tomb with unimaginable wealth. Other people wanted it. The moment gold became a symbol of eternal power, it also became the greatest temptation on earth. Grave robbery is almost as old as burial itself. In fact, archaeologists believe many royal tombs were looted within years, sometimes even months after they were sealed. Think about that. Thousands of workers spent years building enormous tombs hidden deep beneath mountains or buried beneath pyramids. Secret passages, massive stone doors, false corridors, hidden chambers, deadly traps, at least according to legend. And despite all of it, thieves still found a way inside. Why? Because everyone knew what was waiting. Enough gold to change a family's future forever. The Egyptians understood this better than anyone. Some pharaohs carved terrifying curses onto their tomb walls, warnings that anyone disturbing the king would suffer disease, disaster, or death. Hollywood turned these into stories about mummies hunting archaeologists. Reality was less dramatic, but far more interesting. The curses weren't magic, they were psychology. Imagine standing inside a silent underground chamber lit only by a flickering torch, every wall covered in mysterious symbols, every passage disappearing into darkness. Then you read a warning promising divine punishment for anyone who enters. Even if you didn't believe every word, doubt alone could stop you. Fear has always been one of humanity's strongest security systems. Unfortunately for the kings, fear rarely defeated greed. Most royal tombs were emptied long before modern archaeologists arrived. The gold vanished, the jewels disappeared, the furniture was broken apart, Sometimes even the bodies themselves were stripped of their ornaments. That's one reason Tutankhamun became so famous. His tomb wasn't completely untouched, but it escaped the massive looting that destroyed so many others. When Howard Carter finally opened the burial chamber in 1922, he wasn't simply finding treasure. He was seeing something almost no human had witnessed for more than 3,000 years. A royal tomb that still looked remarkably close to the way ancient Egyptians intended. Golden shrines stacked inside one another, nested coffins, thousands of objects arranged with extraordinary care. It wasn't just wealth, it was an entire belief system preserved in gold. But here's something even stranger. If ancient kings believed they could take their treasures into the next world, why didn't ordinary people do the same on such an enormous scale? The answer is surprisingly simple. Most people couldn't. Gold was rare, extraordinarily rare. Before modern mining, extracting even a few ounces required enormous effort. Entire expeditions searched deserts and mountains for tiny veins hidden beneath rock. Workers crushed stone by hand, washed sediment in rivers, melted ore inside primitive furnaces. A single golden necklace represented months or even years of labor. So when a king filled a tomb with hundreds of kilograms of gold, he wasn't simply displaying personal wealth. He was displaying the resources of an entire kingdom. Every bracelet represented miners. Every cup represented craftsmen. Every statue represented thousands of working hours. A royal burial became the greatest public demonstration of power imaginable. Ironically, almost nobody was supposed to see it. The funeral itself became the performance. Crowds watched priests carry glittering treasures toward the tomb. They watched wagons overflowing with riches disappear behind massive stone doors. They witnessed wealth literally vanishing beneath the earth. The message wasn't subtle. Look how powerful our king must be. He can afford to lose all of this forever. Power has always been measured by sacrifice. Even today, governments spend billions building monuments. Companies construct headquarters far larger than they strictly need. People buy watches that tell time no better than inexpensive ones. The object isn't always the point. The message is. Ancient kings simply delivered that message on a scale almost impossible to imagine. And then there is one final mystery. Gold survives. People don't. Walk through almost any archaeological museum in the world. You'll notice something unsettling. The king is gone. His voice disappeared thousands of years ago. His ambitions vanished. His victories became forgotten. The empire he believed would last forever probably collapsed centuries ago. But the gold remains, exactly as bright as the day artisans polished it. In a strange way, the kings achieved part of what they wanted. Not immortality. Something quieter. Memory. You probably know the name Tutankhamun, not because he was Egypt's greatest ruler. In truth, he ruled for only about a decade and died as a teenager. Many pharaohs accomplished far more. Yet his name survived because his gold survived. The treasure carried his memory across 33 centuries. The same is true for countless rulers around the world. Some are remembered not because of the wars they won or the laws they wrote. They're remembered because archaeologists uncovered a golden crown, a golden mask, a golden throne, objects that refused to decay long after every human voice that praised them had fallen silent. Perhaps that's the deepest reason ancient kings were buried with gold. It wasn't simply about buying comfort in the afterlife. It wasn't only about honoring the gods. It wasn't just about displaying wealth. Gold became the closest thing humanity had ever discovered to permanence. Everything else surrendered to time. Wood rotted, cloth dissolved, iron rusted, even mountains slowly wore away. Gold endured, and so kings wrapped themselves in the one material that seemed capable of defeating time itself. Of course, they were only partly right. Gold survived. They did not. Today, tourists walk through museums looking at treasures that were never meant to be seen. Archaeologists carefully brush dirt from objects buried with absolute certainty that nobody would ever touch them again. The kings lost their kingdoms. The priests lost their temples. The empires disappeared. But their gold still catches the light. And maybe that's the real lesson hidden inside every royal tomb. For thousands of years, the most powerful people on earth believed they could carry their wealth beyond death. Yet every one of them left it behind. The gold remained exactly where they placed it, waiting patiently beneath the earth. Not for the king, but for strangers living thousands of years in the future. People like us. Because in the end, the greatest treasure inside those tombs was never the gold itself. It was the story it preserved. A story about power, faith, fear, hope, and one timeless human dream that has never truly changed. The hope that somehow, something of us might last forever.